Unveiling Sinister Secrets, 7 spine-chilling stories exposed by haunting rain's forbidden whispers. Sarah's heart raced as the wind howled outside, rattling the windows of their snug home in Maplewood. That evening, the storm brewed with fury, black clouds looming overhead like a sinister blanket. Shadows danced against the walls as thunder growled its warning, but what unsettled her most were the whispers. They began softly, slipping through the cracks of the old house, an insistent murmur that barely rose above the din of the rain. Were they real or just echoes of her mind? Lily and Evan snuggled under the blankets, eyes wide, trying to drown out the creeping shadows with tales of heroics and adventures. Yet, as lightning illuminated their living room, Sarah caught a glimpse of something outside. The trees at the edge of their yard moved unnaturally, as if shivering with secrets. She wanted to dismiss it, but the darkness called to her, a hungry void that promised danger. Every part of her screamed for the comfort of normalcy, but here it was, the encroaching nightmare hiding just beyond her reach. Days passed, and the whispers grew louder, intertwining with the stories neighbors whispered on porches, casting uneasy glances as they spoke in hushed tones about the whispering woods. Children gone missing, names forgotten. The old sheriff's name surfaced like a ghost, his grim face haunting the edges of her mind. Mrs. Thompson, her closest neighbor, would lean over the fence, her eyes shining with a wary glint. "You stay close, dear. The woods, they take what they please," she'd say, every syllable heavy with dark warnings, and yet, life must go on. The bills piled high, and once again, Sarah found herself shuffling plates at the diner, smelling the greasy air mixed with the scent of desperation. She would laugh, wishing the storm would pass, wishing she could just keep her children safe. But then came that wretched night. The storm intensified, rattling the very foundations of her home. The whispers called to Lily, promising secrets untold. Sarah's heart lurched as she watched Lily gravitate toward the window, drawn into the night as if the darkness itself were beckoning her. "Come back!" she cried, jumping up, adrenaline flooding her veins as she chased her daughter into the night. The moment her feet hit the damp grass, anxiety tightened around her chest in a vice grip. "Lily!" Each call was swallowed by the shadows that slithered around her, the whispers morphing into a cacophony of despair. Panic turned her blood to ice as she dashed deeper into the woods, the trees looming ominously above, twisting and turning like skeletal fingers. The stagnant air felt thick, and dread gnawed at her insides. Where had her sweet girl wandered off to? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Time stretched into eternity as she plunged through the underbrush, branches grabbing at her clothes, and fear drained her strength. Each whisper echoed in her mind, ripping through the silence like a knife. They'll take her. They'll take her. Past the bramble, she could see at that place where light and shadow fought desperately against each other. And then, amidst the eyes of the unseen, came an even more dreadful realization: there was a heavy silence in the air, heavier than before. When morning broke, she stood alone, breathless and trembling. The sun, a dispassionate observer, shone on an empty space where her daughter had been. The dread blossomed into horror, a town that turned away from her as she stumbled back toward the whispers that now engulfed her. Home. Faces peered out from behind curtains, curiosity mingled with fear. The sinister glances weighed heavily on her heart as the sheriff's cold stare met hers, a confirmation of her growing dread. What had she uncovered in the dark? Could she expose the truth without losing her child, or had she already lost Lily to the very woods that whispered despair? The branches of terror reached forth, threatening to ensnare whatever remnants of hope were left. Sarah stumbled back to her home, the shadows of the night still clutching at her mind. Every step was heavy with dread. The whispers had not ceased, they surrounded her, slithering around her thoughts, growing louder with each passing moment. The world felt wrong, as if the air itself conspired against her, thick with the scent of decay and despair. Inside, the house felt hollow, a shell of what it had been, a refuge that now seemed laden with haunting memories. She clenched her fists, fighting against the panic clawing at her throat. Where was Lily? How could she have let this happen? She rushed to the living room, her heart pounding louder than the storm outside. Evan was still huddled under the covers, his wide eyes a mirror of fear. "Mom, where's Lily?" he asked, voice trembling. Her breath hitched, eyes darting around the room, seeking any signs of her daughter. I don't know, sweetie. I'm going to find her." She grabbed her coat and shoes, her skin prickling with the sensation of being watched. Just outside the door, the wind wailed like a lost soul, a sound that seemed to resonate with her own anguish. Returning to the whispering woods felt like crossing a threshold into madness. Yet, she had no choice. Lily was out there, intertwined with the very darkness that threatened to swallow them whole. As Sarah stepped outside, the wind screamed, whipping her hair around her face. Moonlight flickered like a nervous heartbeat through the towering trees. She moved through the yard, scanning for any sign of movement, but all was still, the air heavy with dread. Each step into the woods felt like slinking deeper into a nightmare. Lily. Each call was met with silence, and with every pause, the woods seemed to close in on her. The secrets buried beneath the twisted roots whispered her name, as if mocking her desperation. Uncertainty gnawed at her. Was it too late to save her child? A cold sweat pricked her brow. The trees loomed over her like grave markers, their branches swaying in rhythm, almost beckoning. She felt their gaze, each shadow a reminder that something terrible was waiting just beyond sight. Suddenly, a rustle caught her ear. Her heart leapt. "Lily? Is that you?" No response. Just the sighing of the wind. Fear shot through her, sharp and electric. She pushed forward, determined, but the whispers grew louder, overtaking her thoughts. "They'll take you too, just like her. What do you want?" She shouted into the darkness, frustration bubbling over. The woods held its breath, and for a moment, the whispers faded. But then, she heard it, a giggle. It rang through the trees like a bell. Her heart raced. It was Lily. It had to be. Clutching her flashlight, she sprinted toward the sound, branches clawing at her skin as she hurried deeper, fueled by adrenaline. As she pushed past the thorns, she stumbled into a small clearing, illuminated by a strange glow. But there was something wrong. Shadows flitted across the ground, twisting and contorting in ways that defied logic. Panic bloomed once more. "Lily!" The giggle turned sinister, echoing through the night, and just as Sarah's breath caught in her throat, she saw her daughter standing in the center of the clearing, eyes glossed over, staring forward as if entranced. "Lily!" But the girl didn't move. Instead, a figure emerged from the dark behind her, a tall silhouette with limbs stretched unnaturally long. The moonlight glinted off its hollow eyes, and a chill ran down Sarah's spine. The whispers escalated to a cacophony, drowning out her sanity, clawing at her resolve. "Run!" she screamed, lunging toward her daughter even as the figure's gaze locked onto her. But the ground beneath her began to tremble, roots coiling around her feet, anchoring her to the earth. The darkness closed in, and moments stretched painfully as reality twisted into something far more sinister. With a final surge of terror, Sarah's hand reached for Lily, desperate to pull her free. The night bristled with the weight of secrets, and the forest began to take a deep, shuddering breath. What stood before her? Wasn't he just a nightmare? It was a manifestation of everything she had feared. How do you fight shadows? She wondered in that terrifying moment, and as the figure moved closer, she felt its reach brush against her heart. The invisible chains tightened around her, and the last sound she heard before everything went dark was the mocking laughter of the woods. What had she awakened? The darkness swallowed Sarah whole, a void where the world she knew faded into an echoing silence. Every scream, every breath, was consumed by an insatiable hunger in the night. She felt herself drift, her essence tangling, trying to break free as shadows wrapped around her like frost. Somewhere distant, she could hear Lily's laughter, but it twisted into something cruel, slicing through her heart. Mommy. The word twisted into a song of mocking glee, achingly familiar yet wrong. How could her sweet girl sound so malevolent? Suddenly, a jolt snapped through her. She was yanked upright, gasping for air. The clearing was gone, and instead, she found herself in a tangle of misery, shackled by roots that crawled up her legs, pinning her to the forest floor. Her heart raced, pounding against her ribs as she fought against the thick, moist earth that threatened to drag her down into its depths. A figure loomed over her. It towered like a silhouette painted against the phosphorescent fog. Long fingers, tapering like branches, reached for her, beckoning her into the darkness. "Join us," it whispered, a voice like rustling leaves, filled with all the terrors of forgotten lore. "Become one with the whispers." "No!" she screamed. But the sound fell flat, absorbed by the shadows that pulsated and throbbed, as if alive with unholy energy. She could feel the shadows pressing against her, a suffocating blanket obscuring her vision. "Let her go." A voice erupted from the other side of the clearing. "Evan." Her heart clenched. Her boy was out there, exposed to whatever malevolence lay in wait. "Mommy?" he called, that fragile hope threading through his voice, tightening the roots around her. "Evan, stay back." But her warning was lost in the cacophony that filled the air, a whirlwind of sounds, groans and cries of despair swirling like a tempest. The figure turned, its hollow eyes piercing straight through her, locking onto her son. "Come, little one," it beckoned, luring him with promises of comfort and eternal belonging. "You will never be alone." The shadows writhed, feeding on the rising panic within Sarah. They tightened their grip around her, constricting her desperate movements. "Evan, run," she screamed, her voice cracking. But he stood there, frozen, entranced by whatever terrible charm the figure cast. As Sarah fought furiously against the roots ensnaring her, she felt something sinister shift around her, a pulse of energy that felt suffocating and alive. "Leave him be." Anger surged within her, fueled by fear and love. Summoning every ounce of will she had, she felt a spark ignite against the darkness, another heartbeat pulsing beneath the surface. She lashed out, forcing her hand forward. Light crackled at her fingertips, illuminating the abyss momentarily. The figure recoiled, shrieking, a sound like splintering wood. For a fleeting second, Evan broke from his stupor, eyes wide with terror, looking back at his mother. "Mom!" he cried, and she could see him wavering. "Don't you dare let go." But just as he turned to run, a dark tendril lashed out, wrapping around his ankle. "Sarah!" The figure's voice contorted in triumph, enveloping the air with a scent of burnt earth and rotting leaves, heavier than before. Frantically, Sarah re-invoked the spark, channeling it into sheer willpower. A wave of light flooded the clearing, cutting through the shadows. They hissed and recoiled, burning where the glow touched. "I want to let you have him." Evan staggered but regained footing, rushing back toward the light. She poured everything into that flame. Mothers protect their own, the primal instinct rippling through her veins. The roots began to loosen, as if writhing under the touch of the brightness. But then an ominous rumble shook the very ground. Shadows whispered, their voices now frantic and angry. "You think you can escape?" Shadows never forget. With a final surge, Sarah broke free, lunging toward her son. "Evan, come on." But as she grabbed his arm, the ground shifted violently. Together, they stumbled backward, caught halfway between the darkness and fleeting light. What they had awakened was not just a curse, but something bound to take its due. "Will you keep running?" whispered a voice, chilling in accusation, the shadows regrouping as the clearing darkened. And though the roots receded to their abyss, the laughter returned, more sinister than ever. What would they lose in this fight? It was only the beginning. The air thickened as Sarah and Evan steadied themselves, still encumbered by fear's icy grip. The oppressive darkness hovered near, almost breathing, as the shadows conspired in hushed tones, questioning, mocking, growing restless. Mommy, Evan's voice trembled, vulnerable. His deep blue eyes darted around, searching for clarity, for absolution from the nightmare they were trapped in. Keep your eyes on me, Evan. Sarah urged, glancing at the swirling shadows, waiting, watching, hungry. Desperation clawed at her throat as she clung to the warmth of her son's hand. We have to move. Now. They stumbled backward, but the shadows surged forward, coiling like a serpent, slick and merciless. Just beyond reach was the tree line, threatening to swallow them whole if they dared to approach it. Come back. The hollow voice dripped with malice, echoed with the laughter of trapped souls. A cacophony of despair rose up, drowning her resolve. Remembering Lily's voice, Sarah felt a wash of despair. What had happened to the innocent giggle of her little girl? Was she lost forever? She shook her head, pushing those thoughts away as the darkness closed in again. Don't listen to it, Evan. Panic surged, slick and cold, but she couldn't let it take him, not like it had taken Mommy. I can feel it. He gasped, drawing close. It wants me. It wants us. No. Fury ignited inside Sarah. She sank deep into her memories, the moments of light that fought against this consuming void. All she ever wanted was to keep her family safe. You aren't its plaything. We're leaving. Drawing on her flickering light, she thrust her arm outward, forcing a barrier of brightness against the darkness. Echoes of anger erupted from the shadows, shrieks that pierced like daggers, a storm of rage aimed at her small spark. Yet it held, illuminating the ground, making the twisting roots recoil. Run! Sarah shouted, dragging Evan toward the uncertain safety illuminated by her light. The shadows writhed violently around, tugging at them, eager to reclaim their prize. As they sprinted forward, the ground trembled. But just as hope flickered in her chest, a shadowy figure erupted from the fog, blocking their way. It twisted grotesquely, limbs bending unnaturally, eyes glowing like burning coals. Fleeing is futile, it hissed, and the air turned ice-cold, suffocating her resolve. A surge of memories flashed before Sarah's eyes: Lily's laughter, bedtime stories, warmth, safety, the mundane fabric of life. It was all at stake. She couldn't lose another child to this darkness. Drawing closer, it sneered. I am the keeper of your past. I know your fears, Sarah. I know what you hold dear. Her pulse raced, but she wouldn't give in. The creature twisted its fingers, and the earth quaked beneath them. No! She yelled, pulling Evan closer, turning her back on the encroaching terror. Mommy, I'm scared, he whimpered, glancing back, eyes wide, like searching for an escape in the storm. I know, honey. Keep your eyes on me. Just then, they stumbled into a clearing, its edges vibrant with odd luminescent fungi that pulsed like a heartbeat. Alien light danced across the forest floor, illuminating their path, but the shadows lurked, weaving and whispering, hungry for despair. Do you see, Sarah? You can't outrun it. You can't hide from the past. In a moment of panic, Evan turned towards the darkness. Mom! Evan, no. As her heart dropped, she surged toward him, but the shadows lunged forward, wrapping around his legs like hungry vipers. Join us, they whispered wickedly. You'll never be alone. As his terrified eyes locked onto hers, the shadows twisted into a vortex of despair, pulling him backward, pulling him away, their grasp tightening around his small body. Fight, Evan! She screamed, horror flooding her veins as she battled against the shadowy tendrils. Remember your sister. Fight! And the entity's laughter rose, cascading around them like a noxious mist, crackling with eager cruelty. Will you break the ties that bind you? It taunted, the anticipation thick in the air. Mom! Evan pleaded weakly, desperation etched into his features. Help me. She felt her own heart racing, dread coiling. What had she awakened? What would it demand of them? In that harrowing moment, she understood running was not enough. It was time to confront their darkness. But what would the shadows unveil about her past, and how deep was their bond with her reality? The air grew thick with their uncertainty. Shadows pulsed in anticipation. And she realized the darkest horrors bore the truth within them. Could they find the strength to face it? Or would they be lost forever in the whispers of the night? The shadows writhed like dark tendrils, and every tug on Evan pulled a piece of Sarah's heart with it. She reached for her son, her fingers brushing against the cold darkness, each inch fought with the weight of despair threatening to crush her. Evan! She shrieked, her voice breaking through the chilling laughter echoing around them. I'm coming. Mom! His voice trembled, full of fear, piercing through the oppressive atmosphere. She could see his small figure silhouetted against the consuming dark. It's so strong. I can't remember your sister. Sarah screamed, pushing her energy against the shadows, drawing on the light of their memories. Think about Lily. You have to fight. Evan's pale face twisted in anguish, fear battling against the flicker of hope she offered. The darkness snarled, tightening its grip, as though enraged by her defiance. Lily? The voice dripped with scorn, wrapping around them like chains. You think calling her name can save you? She is part of the darkness now. You have lost her and soon, you will lose him too. Inside, Sarah's resolve trembled. The shadows spun a web of her past, each thread weaving doubt, guilt, anger, sorrow. They were right. She had lost Lily, had let her slip through the cracks because of her own failings. No. She gritted her teeth. You won't take him. Not like you took her. The ground rumbled beneath her feet as the twisted figure of shadow lunged closer, its molten eyes boring into her soul. With every step, it was as if the air thinned, making her gasp for breath. Do you even know what you're doing? It taunted, reaching out with elongated fingers. What does it mean to confront your darkness? To face your own heart. You cannot protect him when you can't even protect yourself. A low growl emanated from the depths of the void, shaking her to the core, but she wouldn't back down. Sarah had to rally against the despair clawing for dominion over her. Evan, listen. She urged, struggling to keep her voice steady. You are strong. You are so much more than they say. Remember the time we picked flowers in the park? Remember how bright everything was? His eyes flickered, and even as the shadows tightened their grip, she saw a spark of recognition. Yes, Mommy. He gasped, torn between his fear and her desperate words. I remember the sun. Yes. The sun is still out there. Fight for it. With a surge of urgency, Sarah focused on the pulse of light from the fungi surrounding them, urging it to grow. Drawing on every ounce of love she had buried deep within, she poured everything into her outstretched hand, light rippling like waves against the majestic might of darkness. Slowly, they both began to glow, illuminating their surroundings, pushing back the shadows that had threatened to consume them. Sarah could feel Evan's small hand tightening around hers, his grip steadier now, filled with courage. Will you accept your fate? The shadow hissed, the voice unraveling into a chilling shriek echoing from the depths of their fears. Will you let go of what you love to save him? But Sarah's heart roared with defiance. Never. In that fleeting moment, her fury mixed with fear, unleashing a blinding light that surged through the clearing. The shadows shrieked, losing their grip as they recoiled into the depths of darkness, far from the warmth of their memories. Run! Sarah screamed, urging Evan forward. She felt relief fleeting but knew it wouldn't last. They had pushed back the darkness for now, but how long would it be before it returned, more powerful, more relentless? The glow began to fade, and as the weight of night descended once more, a chilling laughter echoed behind them. You can't escape. The past will always come back, it's just a matter of time. Sarah's breath hitched, her eyes wide with fear as the clearing plunged into shadow once again. They ran, hearts pounding, feet pounding against the forest floor, desperate to escape, yet, as they fled, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that the darkness was not just a force outside of them but something buried deep within. What had she truly awakened? What secrets lay tangled in the shadows of their past? Evan stumbled, pulling her back. "Mommy, wait. What is it, honey?" Panic surged in her voice. "Look." He pointed, eyes wide. A figure stood at the edge of the clearing, shrouded in darkness, but even in the gloom, familiarity flickered like a candle. The shape twisted, revealing the silhouette of a little girl, her hair flowing like a shadow in the wind, the unmistakable echo of Lily. Is that her?" "Lily!" Sarah cried, the world narrowing as dread tightened its fist around her heart. But the figure turned, its face pale and empty, a haunting resemblance of the daughter she had lost. "Help me, Mommy," it whispered, voice laced with suffocating despair. "Lily!" Sarah rushed forward, but the shadows surged, encircling them once more, ready to consume. "Mommy, don't!" Evan screamed, reaching for her. "Stay with me." But her heart raced as she staggered toward the ghostly form. Was this truly her child, lost to darkness, or another trick of the shadows? The darkness began to pulsate again, a chaotic heartbeat, a rhythmic lure beckoning her deeper. The forest shifted, its very fabric warping, ready to ensnare them once more. Could she resist the lure of a past she never truly faced? Or was she losing everything to the very darkness she tried to flee? The shadows closed in, and Sarah's breath quickened. She had to know, and time was running out. The darkness thickened around them, a living entity that pulsated with malevolence. Sarah felt it wrap around her limbs, tugging her toward the shadowy figure of her daughter. "Lily, is that you?" she called, desperation shoving her fears aside. But the faceless figure only stood there, beckoning her with a phantom hand, a chilling mimicry of the daughter she once adored. "Mommy!" Evan cried, tears pooling in his eyes. "Don't! She's not real." His voice, normally so strong, now quaked with fear, and the shadows trembled at the sound. Evan! Panic clawed at Sarah's throat. She wanted to assure her son, to tell him everything would be fine, but the seductive aura of the figure pulled at her heart. Memories of Lily rushed through her mind, the laughter, the joy now twisted by the dark tendrils coiling around her. "I'm here, Mommy. Please, don't get close." Sarah hesitated, torn between the haunting familiarity and the consuming dread. "But it looks just like her," Sarah murmured, almost to herself, caught in a web of longing. "Lily!" she yelled, stepping forward, unearthing the urge to reunite with the lost part of her soul. The figure shuddered, and for a brief moment, a flicker of light danced through the shadows, forming a shape that resembled Lily's radiant smile. "Help me, Mommy, I need you." Evan stepped further back, his face pale with fright. "Mom, don't. You can't trust it." But the more he pleaded, the harder it became for Sarah to hold on. The shadows responded, writhing and morphing into something more sinister. They tugged at her skin with icy fingers, threatening to blend her into the darkness entirely. "Stay away!" Evan cried again, summoning a brave determination. "Remember what we fought for. Remember the sun, the light." Sarah was lost in a tempest of feelings, hope battling against heartbreak. The light, she echoed softly, as if searching for a spark within herself. In that moment of clarity, she realized they had to escape, not just from the darkness around them but from her own painful memories that threatened to root her in place. The shadows swirled faster, eager to consume the light she had ignited earlier. "Evan, listen!" she shouted, her voice rising above the cacophony. "We can fight this. Together." His wide eyes bore into hers, a rush of youthful resilience igniting something in Sarah. "Together!" he shouted back, clutching her hand tightly, with their connection serving as a lifeline. She forced herself to turn away from the shadow of Lily. "We will not give in," she voiced with fierce determination, and for the first time, she felt a tremor of strength ripple through her. The shadows hissed, enraged at their defiance. "Go!" she ordered, yanking Evan forward as they began to run, their heartbeat drumming against the oppressive silence. But the darkness followed, chasing them like a wolf with its prey. Branches snagged at their clothes, and the underbrush crackled beneath their feet, each step forging them deeper into an uncertain fate. Sarah glanced back, and the figure of Lily still lingered at the edge of the shadows, its gaze laden with yearning and torment. Then she heard it, a low, menacing growl, like thunder rumbling in the distance. The ground shook, and the shadows twisted, merging into something larger, more dreadful. It roared, an echo of her fears, the darkness incarnate, taking shape in a massive, contorted form, eyes glowing with rage. "Flee!" Evan screamed, pulling her hand harder, and they sprinted deeper into the forest. "We have to find the light." The trees appeared to close in around them, their gnarled branches clawing with impatience, the night air thickening with all-consuming dread. But in that terrifying moment, Sarah realized something terrifying. The shadows were not just pursuing them, they were embodying her fears, her regrets, feeding off her pain. Evan stumbled, tumbling into the damp earth, scraping his hands against the ground. "Go!" he shouted, panic marking his voice. Sarah felt the darkness curling around her heart. It was tightening, another reminder that they were not far from her past. "I'm right here," she cried, kneeling to help him up, adrenaline flooding her veins. In the shadows, she caught a glimpse of a doorway, a faint shimmer cutting through the dark, a promise of escape. They dashed toward it, the air crackling with a haunting energy. "Mommy, look!" Evan yelled, pointing at the flicker of light, but the shadow beast howled behind them, ripping through the darkness, intent on claiming them. With every ounce of strength, Sarah propelled them forward, as if the light called to them like a siren in the night. They could not stop now, they could not be lost to this. But as they closed in on the glimmer, it distorted, fluctuating between hope and despair. "Don't let go, Evan. Just a little more." But the shadows surged again, separating them. "Mommy!" he cried out, and for a split second, Sarah hesitated, her heart tearing at the sound of his fear. Just as she lunged forward to grasp him, the tendrils lashed out, gripping around her wrist. "Mom! No!" she screamed, gripping Evan's hand tighter. And in that climactic moment, they collided with the door of light. For a heartbeat, everything stilled. The shadows recoiled, the growls silenced, and the world faded until all that was left was white. Had they escaped? Had they succumbed to the darkness? The blistering white swallowed them whole, and Sarah's mind raced. But at the edge of her vision, a whisper curled through the silence, echoing with a chill. The darkness never truly leaves, it only waits. As the blinding light faded, Sarah felt something shift within her. The familiar chill swept through her gut, the darkness awaited. What had she awakened amid the shadows? What part of her soul had she lost? She shivered, staring into the stark blankness that felt like an abyss, as uncertainty loomed ever closer. "Mommy, where are we?" Evan's voice quaked, breaking through her swirling thoughts, but before she could answer, the whisper returned, threading through her mind with an ominous promise: "Welcome home." The blinding white faded into a muted gray, thin and unwelcoming. Sarah blinked, adjusting her eyes to this new realm. It felt heavy, like a thick fog draped over the ground, turning every surface into an uncertain shadow. The silence hung thick, echoing the uncertainty in her chest. "Where are we?" she whispered, panic bubbling beneath her skin. The abyss felt alive, pulsing with the weight of 1,000 unspoken secrets. "Mom!" Evan's voice trembled, a bare echo of the vulnerability she had just tried to protect him from. He clutched her hand, his little fingers cold and clammy. "Stay close," Sarah replied, her voice strained as she scanned their new surroundings. There seemed to be no boundaries, just an endless expanse of gray that twisted and twirled like smoke. A menacing fog. Suddenly, a low, mournful sound reverberated through the air, a sob, raw and heart-wrenching. Sarah felt goosebumps race across her skin. "Did you hear that?" she breathed, Nearly paralyzed by dread, Evan nodded, eyes wide with fear. It sounded, sad yeah, Sarah whispered, surprised by the chill that settled deep within her bones. But we need to keep moving. Come on. As they walked, the fog thickened, swallowing their footsteps in a hungry silence. Shadows darted at the corners of her vision, figures that faded just as quickly as they appeared. Her instincts screamed at her to run, to escape, yet the oppressive atmosphere weighed her down. Mommy? Evan's voice broke through her thoughts, tinged with desperation. What if those shadows are? Don't think like that. She interrupted, forcing a smile she didn't feel, trying to shield him from her fears. They can't hurt us, she lied. But the shadows felt alive, rippling and twining as if they were listening. Another sob echoed through the void, this time closer, sharper, transforming into a sound of anguish that stabbed at Sarah's heart. What are you? She called into the fog, the air turning frigid against her lungs. Help me, a hoarse voice replied, cracking like ice. The words seemed to weave through the air, binding her with invisible threads. Mommy! Evan cried, his grip tightening. I don't want to be here. Neither do I, Sarah admitted, her voice a shaky whisper as she felt the weight of despair settling in. Something was happening here, something that clawed at her very soul. And then, the fog shifted slightly, revealing a glimpse of figure cloaked in darkness, a sad glimmer of a childlike shape, hauntingly familiar. Lily? Sarah's heart dropped, a mix of hope and fear colliding within her. Is that you? The figure stepped forward hesitantly, face half hidden in shadows. Mommy, please help. No, Evan gasped, backing away. It's a trick. It's not her. His eyes brimming with terror made Sarah's heart ache. But she couldn't help herself. She took a step closer, yearning to grasp the fading semblance of her lost child. The figure's outline trembled, floating like a silken thread in a storm. Mommy, you have to come back, the voice beckoned, pulling on the fibers of Sarah's heart. Her breath quickened. I never left. Aren't you tired? The figure whispered, the voice now tinged with dark temptation. Of running? Of pretending? The shadows began to swirl faster, cutting through the fog, their voices melding into a horrifying chorus of her past mistakes and regrets. Each word a reminder of loss, guilt, and sorrow. They seeped into her mind like poison. Stop! Sarah shouted, clenching her fists. You don't control me. But the shadows didn't relent. They rose, taking shape and form, swirling in a dance of despair, dragging her deeper into their maelstrom. She could feel Evan tugging at her, fear pulsing through his trembling body. Mom! We have to go now. The reality echoed around her, a cruel game. The shadows were her hauntings, her failures, and they were refusing to let her go. Do not listen to them. She shouted, forcing herself back toward her son. She yanked on Evan's hand, but the shadows seized her ankle, forcing her to stumble. Mommy, he cried, his heart-wrenching tone yanking her from fear into action. Together. Remember? We'll get through this. She yelled, bracing herself. With a swift turn, she rejected the tendrils grasping her, the shadows recoiling as her defiance stunned them, yet behind her, the figure was crying out, its voice mixed with laughter that rang hollow. You cannot escape what you've done. And as the ground beneath them trembled, a shift occurred, and Sarah felt the raw pull of the darkness clawing at her emotions. The shadows were flooding around them, prepared to engulf them whole. In that stark moment, the fog churned faster, threatening to break them apart again. Mom! Evan screamed, but she held tight. Not now, she shouted, determination igniting a flicker of light in her chest. We will find the way out, I promise. Just hold on. But just as they turned to run, the shadows howled a deafening roar, and the echo of her past surged toward them, demanding to be heard. The walls of fog began to collapse, collapsing into an unending void, as everything threatened to shatter, revealing another layer beneath. Evan! She yelled, pulling him close, her heart pounding like a war drum. We have to believe. Then, she stumbled, but in the fray, an impossible question lingered in the back of her mind. What if the truth of her past was more dangerous than the shadows? There was only darkness ahead, and the foreboding feeling that something worse awaited them. The chaos swirled around them, a nightmare threading through shadows and echoes of despair. Sarah could feel the weight of Evan's fear, his small body trembling against her. "Mommy, please." Evan's voice cut through the clammy haze, urgent and desperate. "We have to keep moving," she urged, her voice shaking as another wail echoed through the void. The ghostly remnant of Lily vanished with the fading of the fog. All that remained was emptiness, an oppressive silence that pressed against her, stealing her breath. Suddenly, a flicker of light appeared, a soft glow that shimmered like a candle in the dark. Hesitant, Sarah squinted, her heart racing. "This way," she whispered, hoping against hope that it could lead them to safety. Together, they stumbled toward the strange light, drawn to its promise like moths. But the further they went, the more oppressive the fog became. Shadows crawled at the edges of her vision, clawing at her sanity, whispering indecipherable threats. "You know the truth," they hissed, a myriad of voices dripping with malice. Then, the light flickered again. A figure emerged from it, stepping into the fog. Sarah's heart plummeted when she recognized the silhouette. "No, not you. Mommy." The voice was sweet, like honey, twisting her heart. It was Lily, or the thing that had taken her place, a specter made of memories and regrets. "You left us." Lily stepped closer, a faint halo surrounding her frail figure. "You have to join us." "Evan!" Sarah shouted, pulling him back with every ounce of strength she had. But it was as if they were both tethered to the figure, caught in a web of emotion. She tried to escape. "This isn't real." Yet the shadows laughed, melding with the soft glow, pulsating with a rhythm that felt both enchanting and suffocating. The air thickened, each breath becoming heavier, laden with the scent of decay. "Save your tears for what you've lost," Lily's voice echoed softly, laced with a sorrow that felt all too familiar. "You wanted to forget, didn't you? To erase it all. But you can't escape the truth. You owe us." "No. I owe you nothing." Sarah could feel herself drowning in the fog, her sanity, her will, everything slipping away. She couldn't let Evan hear this. "We have to hurry." Evan's eyes darted wildly, overwhelmed, his little hand gripping hers like a lifeline. "Mommy, I want to go home." The shadows muzzled his voice, mocking him. "Home lies within." They sang, their chorus blending into an unsettling harmony. "Focus on my voice, Evan," Sarah shouted, summoning every ounce of authority she could muster. She forced herself to look away from Lily, to the fading light. "That's the way out. We can't give in." The moment hung in the air, suffocating, until Evan nodded, his small face set with determination. "Together. Together." They turned, sprinting towards the glowing beacon, shadows lunging at them, grasping at their legs like desperate hands. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of accusations and despair. "You left. You abandoned us." "No." Sarah screamed back, a raw defiance flooding her veins. The energy crackled in the air as if the shadows recoiled from her rage. "I didn't. I fought for you." But the tendrils reached for her, wrapping around her ankle, dragging her to her knees. "Mommy!" Evan screamed, panic laced in his voice. She looked back just in time to see Lily's expression change. The sweet smile turned into a grimace, a visage of betrayal. "You'll never be free." With a fierce yank, Sarah broke free, pulling Evan with her. They barreled through the mist, the light seeming impossibly far yet so close. Just as they were almost there, the shadows cried out in a deafening roar, an ancient rage spilling forth, the darkness threatening to consume them whole. "Hold on!" Sarah screamed, pushing forward as the ground began to tremble. It felt as if the very fabric of this realm was tearing apart, but in that instant, she caught a glimpse of something, a flicker of something deep within the fog. A door. A way out. With desperation surging through her, Sarah sprinted ahead, urgency flooding her senses. We can make it. But the shadows loomed closer, angry, relentless. The ground shook violently as they neared the light. And then everything stopped. Sarah skidded to a halt, eyes wide. Was this the way out, or another trap? A heartbeat passed, then another, and with unyielding dread, she whispered, what if there's no way back? The darkness loomed, swallowing them whole, and as the light flickered once more, it cast one last shadow across the void, exposing a figure behind the veil. Someone was watching, waiting. Who is it? And in that moment, everything hung in the balance, as the truth of their desperation loomed closer than ever. Evan's breath quickened, matching the frantic pace of his mother's pounding heart. The fog thickened again, swirling with a life of its own, blurring the edges of their vision. Mommy, I can't see. His voice was small, swallowed by the oppressive silence. Stay close to me. Sarah grasped his hand tighter, squeezing it until she felt the warmth radiating from him. But just then, a chill ran down her spine as shadows began to twist and reshape around them. Is it the way out? Evan asked, his eyes darting to the fleeting glimpses of the dark figure. Each flicker pulled at Sarah's gut, it felt like a lure into a maelstrom of terror. I want to let it take you. She said fiercely, forcing herself to face the looming void, though it trembled under her gaze. The shadows morphed and writhed, creating twisted shapes that mimicked her darkest fears. Mommy, Evan whimpered, his voice soft and tremulous. What if it gets us? It won't. Just trust me. Her voice broke, clawing its way through the pressure building in her chest. She could feel every ounce of their shared fear, a palpable force that threatened to overtake them both. Suddenly, the figure emerged again, its form flickering like an old film reel. This time, it stood upright, more defined, more menacing. The air crackled with something sinister, like static before a storm. You can't run forever, Sarah, a voice echoed. It was a whisper laced with impatience and contempt, every word a dagger to her resolve. You owe me, you owe us. No, please. Sarah shouted, unwilling to let this specter drown her in guilt. But the more she screamed, the deeper the shadows enveloped them, vibrating with dark laughter that seeped into her bones. Evan pressed against her, his little body shaken with terror. Mommy, I can't breathe. Her heart shattered at his words. Hold on to me. She shouted again, her voice piercing the veil like a lifeline as they stumbled forward, desperately clawing at the breathless darkness, and then it happened. A bone-chilling roar erupted from the shadows, echoing back the tortured cries of the damned. The fog thickened into a suffocating mist, closing in on them as the darkness loomed now like an embodiment of despair. The light flickered, offering a brief glimmer of hope, but with it came an unnatural howling, a cacophony of mocking voices rising like a tidal wave. You can't escape your past, Sarah. They jeered, the words slithering into her ears, fueling an icy dread that wrapped around her heart. Keep going. We're almost there. She screamed, unsure if she was convincing him or herself. But Evan hesitated, fear anchoring him to the spot. I don't want to see it. He clung to her, eyes wide with panic. What if it sees me? No, Evan, look. She pointed to the flicker, now almost sparkling like a beacon of hope but surrounded by sinister shadows clawing at their edges. It's our way out. And just as they took a tentative step forward, the ground trembled again, shifting beneath them. The cacophony grew louder, twisting into a shrill laughter that rattled Sarah's nerves. Suddenly the light blinked out entirely, plunging them into a darkness so deep it felt like being buried alive. Panic clawed its way up her throat. Mommy! I can't see anything. Evan cried, despair rising in his voice like a tide. But before Sarah could reassure him, a bone-chilling whisper licked the back of her neck. Join us, Sarah. In an instant, the shadows surged forward, a chaotic wave washing over them, dragging at their feet, tugging them into the depths of despair. Sarah fought, pulling Evan to her. No. We're not going to become a part of this. But as she shouted, the figures began to solidify, faces emerging from the fog, twisting with fury and sorrow. No, please. She pleaded, her knees buckling as the weight of their despair pressed in images, memories, all she had lost flooding her mind. In the chaos, she felt the warmth of Evan slip away, his hand breaking free from her grip. Mommy! Evan! Panic surged through her, and as she turned, she was met with the figure now fully manifested, eyes void and hollow, a haunting reminder of what she had failed to protect. Join us, the spectre whispered again, the word reverberating through her mind. You can't keep fighting. Just as Sarah lunged forward, her heart pounding in her chest, the ground opened beneath her, a yawning chasm gaping wide, threatening to consume everything. What if it takes him? She thought, the world collapsing as the voices converged into an overwhelming symphony of despair. Then everything faded. A sudden calm blanketed her as she realized she was dangling at the edge of the void, one hand gripping Evan's small arm. Please, hold on tight. Don't let go. But as she gazed into his terrified eyes, something shifted in the shadows, a figure inching closer, an unmistakable familiarity crawling through the fog. Is that Lily? And as that truth materialized, so did a haunting question: what does she want now? Before Sarah could brace herself, the ground erupted, and darkness swallowed them whole once more. The darkness engulfed them, an overwhelming weight that stretched toward infinity. But Sarah's grip around Evan felt unwavering, even as shadows clawed at the edges of her mind, whispering tumbling regrets and burdens of despair. Mom! Evan's voice trembled against the shroud of despair surrounding them. What if we never get out? But she had no answers. Only raw determination and love pulsing through her heart. We will get out, Evan. She replied fiercely, focusing on the faint glimmer that flickered like a distant star in the encroaching darkness. In that moment, something shifted. The fog began to swirl, revealing fleeting glimpses of familiar faces illuminated in its depths. There was Lily, just a wisp of light enveloped by shadows, her laughter echoing like a distant memory. Mommy! Help me! The voice was layered in sadness that sent a chill through Sarah. It was a lament, not a call for salvation. She's lost. Evan shrieked, pulling on her sleeve. In that split second, Sarah felt the air vibrate with a powerful energy, the shadows coiling tighter, feeding off their fear. No! She screamed against the impending gloom, resisting the darkness. We're stronger than this. We have to fight. Fight what? An echoing voice joined the cacophony surrounding them. Can you really save her if you want to confront the truth? The whispers attacked from all angles, weaving despair around her like a heavy blanket. Doubts surged forward from the shadows, her failures, her fears confronting her with images of moments lost. Fleeting glimpses of laughter twisted into cries of panic, faces once filled with love now gaunt and accusing. No! She shouted again, framing her anger and love into an invisible shield around her and her son. I will not let you take us. In the darkness, a blinding light began to pulse from her heart, fueled by the memories of joy and love that had once blossomed in the midst of despair. We're not alone, she whispered, her voice unwavering as she squeezed Evan's hand. They were not victims, they were a team. Come on! She urged, leading him toward the flickering glimmer that seemed to shimmer with purpose, a doorway leading out of this haunting realm. Shadows screeched in frustration, their forms continuously shifting in the background, desperate to envelope her. Mommy, I can't. Evan trembled, she could feel the grip of his fear. It threatened to tear them apart, but the light was growing, feeding off their unity and courage. Remember the flowers? The park? You're stronger than this. She insisted. His gaze sharpened, defiance glinting in his eyes. Together. Together. She confirmed, pouring every ounce of her strength into those 2 words, their bond crackling with the loudest defiance against the invitation of shadows. Evan's fingers tightened around hers, igniting hope within. And as they sprinted forward, the light surged, creating a brilliant path through the choking gloom. The darkness roared in frustration, tendrils reaching for them but recoiling from the luminous dawn they carried with them. "Follow me," Sarah shouted, adrenaline racing through her veins. They dashed through the shadow-laden corridors, the light amplifying around them as it consumed the despair. "Mommy, I see it." Evan pointed eagerly, excitement overtaking them as the glimmer grew brighter. A flickering door spread wide, shards of sweet sunlight pouring forth, a portal back to the life they longed for. "Yes. We can do this," she cried out, urgency fueling every step. The shadows howled, the air filled with rage that surged against their momentum, but they would not yield. They pushed harder, hearts racing, minds resolute, then in a flash, they plunged through the door, a cascade of warmth enveloping them like a protective shield. The light overwhelmed the shadows, dusting off the weight of hurt, suffocating despair. With one last shriek, darkness clawed at the edges, but it could no longer grip their souls. They burst into a world drenched in golden morning light, a soft wind cradling them, the warm sun bathing their faces in welcome. Sarah gasped in relief. Panting as she scanned the environment, a familiar park with laughter echoing, children chasing one another, the gentle rustle of trees nearby. "It's over," she breathed, looking down at Evan, whose face sparkled with innocence restored. "Mommy, look!" he gasped, pointing to a gentle outline in the distance, and there she was, Lily, standing within the light, free of shadows. Her smile was radiant as she held out her hand, the specter of despair replaced with love. "Mommy! You found me!" In that instant, Sarah's chest tightened, tears swimming in her eyes. Every struggle, every fear, every tear shed surged forth, but now they mingled with fierce gratitude. She knelt, arms outstretched, ready to embrace her daughter. "Oh, Lily!" But then, a soft whisper wrapped around her. "Remember to face the truth, Sarah. Always take the light within you." As she hugged her daughter close, she felt the echoes of the darkness brush against her soul. The disconnect faded, the shadows pulled back, but they would always remain a part of her, a reminder of the fight and the love that emerged from it. As they stood, holding one another in the warm embrace of morning, she knew they would always face the shadows together, armed with light and love, resilient against all that would dare to challenge them. And somehow, they would flourish. You need to subscribe now. Don't wait even one more second, hit that bell so you won't miss our next exclusive stories. Smash that like button too, because it helps the algorithm and shows your support. Believe me, it's so important. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about this ending. I'd love to see what you think. And please share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans know the power of supporting the channel.